What if the problem in your relationship isn't that you want too much, but that you've been taught to want too little? In today's episode, I'm chatting with Dr. Tammy Nelson. She's a board-certified sexologist, a licensed therapist, a TEDx speaker, the author of Open Monogamy, and some other books. And we're talking about everything from sexless marriages, mismatched desires, emotional disconnection, to the myths that we've been fed about what marriage and commitment are supposed to look like, quote unquote. Dr. Tammy is sharing some powerful insights from her 35 years of experience working with couples and individuals in both traditional and non-traditional relationships. And she doesn't shy away from the hard stuff. Enjoy.
Oh, amazing. Okay. We'll just do it. How about that? So first, welcome to Nope, We're Not Monogamous.
Thank you.
And I would love, would you tell the listeners a little bit about who you are?
Yes, sure. I'm happy to. I'm Dr. Tammy Nelson. I'm a sexologist and a certified sex therapist, a certified sex and couples therapist. I'm an imago relationship therapist. I've been a therapist for like 35 years. I mean, I know that ages me, but it's been a long time. And I have a private practice where I see couples and people in alternative relationships and individuals. I do retreats for people with ketamine for couples and people in opening and closing their relationships. I have a podcast, The Trouble with Sex. I have a TED Talk about open monogamy, and I have 6 books. The most recent is called Open Monogamy, A Guide to Co-Creating Your Ideal Relationship Agreement. And I'm here in Los Angeles where it's nice and sunny today.
Amazing. Wow. That's fantastic. Thank you. Open monogamy. Tell me about that. How does that work?
Well, people in the world of open relationships don't like that title because it says monogamy. And people in the traditionally monogamous world don't like it because it says open. But open monogamy is really, monogamy is a legal term. It just means being married to one person versus polygamy, which means being married to more than one. And people sometimes, you've probably found this too, like in the press, they confuse polygamy and polyamory. And I want to say, no, that's not a thing. But open monogamy is really where you have a primary or a central partner, but you have a flexible, fluid relationship agreement. And there's a monogamy continuum. So, you could go anywhere on that continuum from, you could be traditionally monogamous, but share maybe your fantasies or look at porn together or even just admit that you might be attracted to other people. I mean, for some couples, that's really a slippery slope, right? All the way to maybe watching other people have sex, either online or in a party, or maybe having sex with other people if you're around, or maybe having an emotional attachment, but only with your partner involved, all the way to the far side of the continuum where there's total anarchy. But the idea is to help people communicate about what they want. And it's not my choice, and I don't really have a judgment, but what my job is to help you figure out what you want.
Yeah. That's brilliant. That is, I while I'm non-monogamous and I mostly work with non-monogamous people, I also have clients who are monogamous and who are just like, something isn't working. What do we do? Right. And so like having to figuring out what changes can happen, because we're kind of given this like one size fits all idea of what like marriage or a relationship is supposed to look like, except we don't actually know what it is. Like it's very vague. It's like, only look at me ever. And that just doesn't work.
No, I think 98% of people have fantasies of people other than their spouse. Like and people that are married and pretending that they're monogamous, 50% of those people are cheating. So, our ideas of monogamy are based on morality. And those rules, it was kind of an experiment that had its run. And it worked when we lived to be a certain age, and when in our particular culture, in our westernized world, when women stayed home, because it worked for the family. And, we only had like 2 kids, and you stayed at a company for your whole career, and, the world was just different. That nuclear family experiment is over. I mean, it doesn't really work. Financially, it doesn't work for women. Women tend to be higher educated, and they have better jobs actually than men. And we have all kinds of different family scenarios. And it's actually better to have more partners now. Like, if it's more
Yeah.
affordable. And don't you want more people to like be invested in your children and in your well-being and aren't you like, um, I think we discovered this during the pandemic. Like, some people were really good at foraging for toilet paper. And some people were like, you know what? I think I need another partner to homeschool my kids because I suck at this. I think a lot of people discovered like the multiplicity of relationships is actually really beneficial in many ways.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And e especially when they realize that, like, that doesn't mean that it has to be a sexual romantic relationship, but we can just expand our community and have, like, a lot of intimacy in there.
Yep.
Otherwise, it feels really scary or threatening for people.
Well, and I think it is scary and threatening. Like, loneliness is the biggest epidemic right now.
Yeah.
There's a study that said 33% of Americans, adult Americans, say that loneliness is their biggest problem. Like, that's so sad to me.
Mhm. Mhm, mhm.
Embrace it.
It really is. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. What in your opinion, what do you think is the biggest misconception that people have about, like, non-monogamous relationships or even open monogamy?
Mhm. Well, you know, I think you found me through, I do some consulting for Ashley Madison, and they have
Yeah,
90 million members worldwide. So, I mean,
that blew my mind.
it's not that people are not looking for variety or outside partnerships. I mean, people want connection. Like, that's how we heal from trauma. It's how we make sense of who we are as people. I just think that people don't necessarily look for another person. They look to be another person. And I really want
Ooh.
your listeners to hear that. Like, if you're in a relationship with someone that is looking for another partner, or if you're looking for another partner, if you're cheating or opening or whatever, all of those outside relationships, it's not necessarily that you're looking for someone else, it's that you're looking to be someone else. And I think that is the biggest growth experience that we can get from all of this. Like, who are you with this person versus who are you with this person? And can you be this person with people at home or not? Like, how much of your life are you living in integrity, and how much are you splitting off and compartmentalizing? And I don't mean integrity from a moral perspective. I just mean like integrate. Like, so things aren't
Yeah.
aren't hidden and split off, and you don't have to use all that energy to hide things. That takes a lot of energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yes, totally. Totally. I had read a book called The Hidden Wholeness that was written by a Quaker man that talks about this, about living as, like, just who you really are.
I'm gonna write that down.
And yeah, it's brilliant. It's so good. He led, like, men's circles and just allowed people to just say their truths in all sorts of different ways,
Mhm.
and was finding, like, so much healing, and people just literally just saying, like, "This is a thing that I think about," created so much healing. And I can see that in relationships a lot, where just saying, like, "Hey, this is a fantasy I have," or, "Hey, I think about maybe opening up," or, "I think about having a threesome." Does saying the thing doesn't mean either your partner agrees or you break up. It means, like, we're having a conversation and just sharing our thoughts and our ideas and what's happening internally, and it's so freeing.
It also doesn't mean you have to do it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I love that you said, it doesn't mean you have to break up. I mean, it also doesn't mean you have to take it into action. Like, sometimes just the fantasy of the threesome is juicy enough to last a lifetime. And
Yeah.
maybe for some people it's safer too. Who knows? But you can talk about a lot of fantasy before you take anything into action. And actually, that's kind of what I suggest to people. Is like, you should talk about this as a what if conversation. Like, what if we did this? how could this benefit us and what could be the risks? Well, what if we did it this way? How could this benefit us and what are the risks? Like, I think you should have those conversations as fantasy before you actually, leave your house or call someone up to come over or call the neighbor or whatever. Like, work it through in that way, not to the point of communication fatigue, which I think we can get stuck in, talk
Yeah.
something to death till like 2 o'clock in the morning and over talking and sort of sucking
Again and again and
sucking the
again.
life out of it. But definitely, like
Yeah.
you're saying, like talking about fantasies, I think is the first step.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. Um, I had a thought about that, but I lost it.
Oh, I said a lot in there. I'm sorry.
No, the ADHD hit.
Just we go off in like ADHD tangent.
I love
Awesome.
it. I love it. Um, yeah, talking about oh, yes, I remember. So I often have people like couples will come to me. A lot of people wind up opening their relationship out of there was some infidelity or they jumped to that as the solution. Like I'm having troubles here, there's something missing, something I don't like, or I want something different. And they automatically decide what the solution to that should be. And then they take that solution to their partner rather than the problem to their partner, is often what winds up happening. And I'm like, and so many bumps in the road and so many arguments and fights and hurts can be avoided if they would take the problem to their partner first and talk about that rather than deciding what the solution is and going, here's what we need to do. Because they don't actually know what all the solutions are, what all the possibilities are. They're just like in their own little bubble trying to figure it out. And so I wonder, you've been doing this a long time. How do you guide people in that and like coming together and sharing authentically what's going on for them?
There's so many points in that. You think the brain is just the same highway.
Yeah.
So the first thing you said was like that I really liked, where you said, people take the solution to their partner instead of the problem first. I thought that was
Yeah.
really well put. I also appreciate what you said about, opening your relationship is not a way to fix your relationship. In fact,
Nope.
if it's broken, it's only going to get worse. So there's reasons
Totally.
that it's not working, and you got to explore those first. It's really helpful and is really fun to expand on what's already working. If you have a good solid foundation and you're in a good space, you're just spreading that around with more people and it works pretty well, at least, for periods of time, and you can always back it up. But the idea of opening your relationship to continue an affair is kind of like asking your partner for permission to have what was a non-consensual, non-monogamous relationship to now be consensual. You're asking for permission like you're asking a parent. And so now you're parentifying your partner. Please, please, mom, or please, dad, can I please date? Can we get a puppy? Can I have permission? No, I'm going to go out front. Like, no, that totally desexualizes, first of all, your relationship at home because it's parentified now. And
Yeah.
that's not really what an open relationship is. That's just, creating rules and asking for a dysfunctional behavior to continue as something that might save you. Now, that's not to say that open relationships don't sometimes start with secrets, because I think they do.
Yeah.
Sometimes they start with just the secret of what you're holding in your mind. Like, God, I really would like to do this, and I don't know how to talk to my partner about it. And that in and of itself could be a problem. Like, how do you bring it up? So in my book, Open Monogamy, I have a lot of like dialogues. Like, this is how you should talk to your partner, and this is what you should say, and this is how you can bring it up. And these are the dialogues back and forth. But I think for your listeners, one way to start a conversation might be, I heard this podcast and it's interesting because, they were saying that open relationships can actually improve your marriage. You can actually stay together and have a marriage or a committed partnership with someone and still be emotionally or sexually or romantically involved with other people. What do you think of that idea? Can you imagine? Like, I don't know. I don't know if we could ever do that. Could you ever think that maybe that could be us? Like, really talk about it as a what if.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder, the thing that always comes to mind for me when I um hear that, or even when I give that very similar advice, right? Is then what if their partner is someone who's automatically like, "Wait, you what? You wanna do what? What's wrong with me? Like, you don't love me anymore? You wanna leave? You wanna go sleep with someone else? Like, what are you talking about?"
Mhm. Mhm. And I think
Then what do you do?
it's a common response to people who don't really know that the other person's ever thought about that, right? So
Ah,
the way that I help people process their feelings is that I think you have four resources in your relationship: time, attention, affection, and sex. So
mhm,
when the partner that's sort of surprised or resistant to the idea is like, what the hell? Um, we might want to ask, well, when you're thinking, what the hell, what are you thinking that you might lose or not get enough of, or something that is going to be taken away from you? Or what are you not getting enough of in your relationship now that it feels like, geez, I'm going to get even less now? Um,
ah,
for me, time is like a big thing. Like sometimes I'm envious of even of my clients who are like have a bunch of partners on different nights and a calendar, and they have, and I'm like, fit them all in. um, so busy. I don't understand how you have 13 partners. Like it's so improving. Um, so for some people, it might be like, I don't get enough time from you now. Like you're gonna take my weekend away. For other people, it might be, wait a minute, I barely get eye contact anymore. Like you come home, you sit on the couch, you play with the kids, or you're whatever. Um, and so how come that's going to be directed to someone else? And same thing with affection and sex. However, ironically, when someone brings this topic up, it's like a wake up moment in the relationship. So you spend
mhm.
more time talking about it. Now you are making eye contact. You are paying attention to each other because you're sort of seeing each other from a different perspective. Like, I don't really know you. And now I'm curious who the hell you are. And actually, not a
Yeah.
bad thing.
Yeah. 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 I mean, that's what happens when we first start like dating someone, right? As we're getting to know this person, and then we know them and we figure, well, I know everything about them, and we kind of become complacent. And then they bring up something new and you're like, wait,
Exactly.
who are you? What's going on here?
Exactly. I mean, we're attracted to people in the space in between us, right? So,
Yes.
when they're next to us on the couch every night, not so much, but the curiosity that we have in the beginning is part of the intrigue. But then if there's unknown parts, then it feels like, wait a minute, we're not as intimate as I thought we were. And so it can feel intriguing like it did in the beginning. It can also feel like, hmm, I guess we're not that close. And
Mhm.
but the just statistically and anecdotally, what I see is that open relationships actually do make people closer if they have the communication skills to process it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's I do a lot of, the podcast and then, like, free classes and stuff like that, and I almost always include the caveat, like, all the advice I'm giving you here is assuming that your relationship is already pretty healthy, that you guys communicate, that you talk about things, and isn't, like, an abusive situation, because all of this goes out the window if that's what's going on.
Yeah, well, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
monogamy, commitment, relationships, it's not black or white, right? It's not a polarization. You're either closed or open. It's not like if your partner says, I want an open relationship, you might think, oh my God, we're going to be polyamorous and people are going to move in with us. And where are we going to put them? And like, it's a lot of gray in between.
so much.
Yeah, and so that's an important part to communicate about. Like, what do you mean when you say that? Are you just saying that, we want to go to a party, some some exciting way, or what exactly does that mean? Sometimes people don't even know what they mean. They just want to drop it into the conversation, like, bam, okay, topic, let's talk.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, like, they have no idea what possibilities are there, like, what is on the menu, right? Like, "Can you give me a menu of options here that I can choose from?"
Which is in my book, by the way.
Yes, yes, good, 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 good. Which gives that kinda great I always call it the, like, from, like, a light switch, right? People think, like, open or closed. I'm like, get rid of the light switch and install a dimmer.
Just go.
Install a little dimmer
That's what
switch for mood lighting.
he loves those dimmers. Every house he goes into, he's like, "What? Dimmers? I don't get it."
Me too. That's I think we replaced almost all of ours, and then you have to buy special light bulbs, it's a whole thing. But it's not just off or on.
It's more subtle, and you create environments and and relationships,
Yeah.
you're right, they're not binary, right? It's not
Yeah.
closed or open. And, we have an interesting sort of just this whole world of therapists and the lifestyle people and the people who are poly. Some people have gone so far in that direction that they've come around the other side to be somewhat rigid about what we call ourselves. And I
Yes.
think that's sort of the opposite of what we're going for. Like, it doesn't matter how you slot yourself into um a definition. And what matters more is how the two of you define it. Like, how do you want to define the relationship? What do you want to do? How do you want to act? What's important? What are your values? That the relationship
Yes.
always comes first, or the kids come first, or honesty comes first, or privacy, or we never tell people at work, or like, what are the things that you can agree on that you'll always come back to? It doesn't matter what other people think. It really matters what you think.
Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. I had a friend, ask me he said, "Well, we're not polyamorous. Someone recently told me we're not polyamorous because we don't have a triad." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "Well, yeah, they said that because we date separately and we don't have a third partner that we're not polyamorous." And I was like, "That's not how that works." So just someone had told him that that was the definition of polyamory, and he's very polyamorous, and I was like, "No, no, somebody told you wrong."
Somebody told me, like, I that they thought they were kitchen table poly, but they'd never had breakfast together, so they couldn't identify that way. And I was like, "Oh, that's not what that means."
Oh,
I know. See,
I mean, like, plant brunch.
it means that everybody knows each other and gets along. And
Yeah.
and I know a lot of people, you're younger than me, but I know a lot of people in my generation that would never define themselves as polyamorous, but they might have friends that they have sex with on the weekends. You know what I mean? Like, and during the week they go to the PTA meeting, or they, they serve on the board or whatever. But it's just it partly a generational thing. Like, that term does not apply to a lot of people. They wouldn't define themselves that way. They didn't grow up with that term. They didn't learn it in school. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I actually that's funny. I do know several people who, have been like swingers for 20 years and they've been sleeping with the same friends for 15 of those. They travel together and they have whole life events together. And I'm like, you guys are kind of partners. In my mind, you define it how you want.
And my friends would call it, that they're sexy friends, or that,
Yeah.
like, there's just a different nomenclature, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. You've been doing this a long time. I think you mentioned 30 years?
35.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much. So you've been doing this for like 35 years. What would you say is the biggest lie that we've been sold about like marriage or commitment?
Okay, so I can think of a couple, but the one that comes to mind right now is that men get bored with marriage and look for sex, and women just want to fall in love and have relationships. And I can tell you that's not true. It's not true from my research. And um, the research actually shows from a sociological perspective and anthropologically, biologically, women are bored with marriage much sooner than men, actually. It's much less rewarding for women. We have much more, hetero women have much more responsibility in marriage. We've taken on more roles. It's frustrating and we get tired of the sex. Like, we are not happy around mid-marriage. So women tend to have as many affairs as men. We just don't tell anyone. We don't tell the researchers. Affairs are based on dishonesty, right? So you can't get honest answers to research, but the reality is women will cheat and be much more subtle about it because of the risks. Historically, the risks are
Yeah.
much higher for women. So, and the other piece about men wanting sex versus relationship, you know, I can tell you that I did when I wrote the book When You're the One Who Cheats, I had 2 profiles that they let me do on Ashley Madison. So I didn't interact with anyone, but I put up anonymous profiles, one as a man and one as a woman. And I just said my name was Tom and Tracy or something. And I said I was 6'2", and as a woman I was 5'8", I was blonde. I gave like no information. But the responses I got were fascinating. So as a man, as Tom, women sent me um, pictures of themselves in lingerie, boob shots, bathing suit shots, like all these sexy pictures. And all of the requests were, I just want to have sex with you after you put the kids on the bus. I don't want a relationship. I don't want to hear about your problems. Tell your wife your problems. I don't want to have anything to do with that. And I don't need to see you every week. Like, that's not a thing. And almost every one of them wanted like kinky hot sex, like really.
Yeah. Yep.
And now that, it's a self-selected population, a lot of them were around the same age, kind of middle age. Their kids were a little older, old enough to put them on the bus,
Right.
and older. So there was an age range. When I was a woman, the men were writing to me saying that they weren't happy at home emotionally. And they were looking for basically a parallel partnership. Like, they wanted a girlfriend. They wanted the girlfriend
Yeah.
experience. Like, they wanted to text me every day. They wanted to make sure I wasn't involved with other men. And they wanted to know that we could have more than just a one-night stand. And that was true for all the letters that I got. So it really flips the script on, like, really? Are men just looking for sex? No, they're looking for emotional connection. And women want good sex. So we all want all of it, which is also true, but we can't, focus on these like gender norms or these heteronormative roles that we put on people around sexuality and around monogamy and relationships. They just don't fit anymore. It's just not
No.
applicable. Now, if you're in the Midwest and you're listening and you're in a more sort of conservative space where it seems like everyone is married and happy, ask your friends if they're still having good sex. Ask your friends if they're having an affair. Like, find out what's really going on in marriage today. And there's a shift because we're living longer. We're expected to have sex well into our 80s, so we got a long time to figure this out.
Yeah. 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 I was a few years ago, I was at a sex toy party. There was mostly monogamous women that were there. And the lady behind me says, "Oh, my husband gets a blowjob on his birthday and that's it. Otherwise he can stuff it." And I thought, really?
What?
Like, she was just like, I don't think she liked her husband, but she certainly didn't want to have sex with him. And I'm thinking, well, maybe what's going on here? Like, what? Because I want to have sex with mine.
He was done. He was done.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I wonder what kind of like resuscitation tools would you suggest to someone? Like, people want to have better sex with their partners and they want, or maybe they want more emotional connection. How do they find that?
Well, I can tell you that it's not pathological or diagnostic to not want to have disappointing sex. So
Truly.
she's like, you know what? I don't want to go back in there because what's the point? Like I've tried
Yeah.
over and over and over again and it just is not pleasurable. Then blame her.
Yeah.
But, you know, your partner's not going to know what you like unless you tell them. And
Mm.
you may not know what you like unless you figure it out for yourself. And then, we're like two sides of a bridge. So it doesn't matter if you're gay, trans, straight. We have a relationship that's like a bridge where one of you is on one side and the other person's on the other side. So you have to take care of your side of the bridge, figure out your sexuality, your needs, your desires, what turns you on, what buttons to push. And they have to figure out their side of the bridge. What turns them on is desire, and how they function sexually is arousal. So what happens in their body? Can they have an orgasm? Can they reach, ejaculation upon demand? Like what's going on in the body? Because it could be medical, could be medication. Like there's all kinds of stuff that could be happening in your body. And then there's the relationship, which is the bridge. Like how do you communicate all that stuff? People are not taught to talk about sex. They're taught to talk about, doing the dishes, taking the garbage out. And then, like you said, which I thought was so smart, then they skip to, oh, maybe we should open a relationship. We're barely talking about the garbage, but, let's blow it wide open, which may be fine for many couples. Maybe that's what they need. But to improve the sex that you have to understand the sex that you want.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. And then talk about it.
And be able to talk about it. Yeah. And I can tell you this and secret to this, if you don't mind. The secret,
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
this is kind of the secret of the universe, is that you always get more of what you appreciate. So
Mm.
if you continue to point out what's not working, what you're not getting enough of, what your partner's doing wrong, and trust me, I'm very good at this, at the criticizing. Like I've honed it to a skill. But if you keep doing that, then it just reinforces that neurological pathway in your brain, kind of like a deer path in the woods to, talking about sex leads to conflict. And so I'm either going to fight or flee or fawn or whatever, freeze like a doe in the headlights.
Yeah.
So the way that you change your sex life is to point out what's working and expand on that. An example is like, you know what? One thing I really appreciate about our sex life, I know we don't ever have sex, but I remember 20 years ago when we had that sex in the shower that night. That was really fun. I really love that. I'd like to do more of that. So that you're expanding on something that's working, even if you've only done it once or even if you don't do it often. Instead of going in and saying, I have this fantasy, first start off with what you're already doing. Because if you start with a fantasy, sometimes your partner will be like, where did you come up with that? Are you cheating on me? Do you have a porn person that you've seen do this? Like you can talk about fantasies, but first talk about what's already working for you.
Mhm.
Let your partner know you appreciate it. And trust me, that will open their prefrontal cortex and they'll be like, oh, tell me more about what you appreciate. Like appreciation.
Yeah. 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 I call it sandwiching, right? If you start with the good stuff and you end with the good stuff, then everything in the middle, like you can throw some vegetables in there and it's totally fine.
What do most of your listeners ask you? What are they interested in?
So the main topics that wind up coming up are around jealousy. Jealousy is a big one. Um, opening up their relationship and that entire arc. And then mismatched desires, right? Whether that is like sexually or just in non-monogamy. right? Like where one wants polyamory, one just wants a biweekly friend with benefits,
Mhm.
right? Those are probably the big ones.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to talk about those unless you have a question in mind that you want to mention.
No, yeah, I would love to hear your insights on that.
Well, the question about mismatched desires, like I call that a monogamy gap. And
Oh,
I can tell you that everyone has a monogamy gap. It's not just people in open relationships. It's everyone has a different idea of what monogamy, or you can replace the word with commitment, what that actually means, or even replace that with relationship. What does it mean to
yeah.
be in a relationship? You learn differently because you learned from different parents. And so, we have this implicit assumption that we both understand the same and agree on the same and want the same. And, my implicit assumption about monogamy is that, um, it's not okay to go to strip clubs. Your implicit assumption is I've been going to strip clubs since I was 14. It doesn't count. Um, I hear that about pornography all the time. Like,
Yeah.
some people think pornography is cheating. Other people are like, I've been doing this since I was 10. Like, it has nothing to do with you. So, making your understanding about what is monogamous explicit will give you more understanding about that monogamy gap, because the betrayal and the hurt usually comes from really not understanding. Like, okay, you've been going to strip clubs since you were 10? Like, who brought you there? Oh, well, it was all my family, my uncles, my brothers. It was about being a man, and, they thought I was straight, and I was actually gay, and this is what happened, and that like, I've heard so many stories about people who really didn't understand their partner's history of their parents' marriage, of what sex meant to mom or dad or their parents or their caretakers or whoever brought them up. One of the best ways to understand your monogamy gap, what you're each expecting from your relationship, is to ask the question, what does your parents think about sex? And
Yeah.
people are like, ooh, or I don't know, or it didn't happen, or they did it all the time, or, you know, um, my mother told me the biggest problems she ever had in her life were because of sex. And I was like 6 years
Uh-huh.
old. So, but if you think about it, I have made it my mission in life to tell people that sex is the solution instead of the problem. Like,
Yeah.
we will continue our parents' mission in our relationships, professional or personal, because we're trying to heal, like, generation to generation. So you might have a parent that got divorced. A lot of the past couple generations, kids grew up in families that got divorced or had affairs. And so you may have this desire to say, look, we might be married, but we're not dead. We're going to be attracted to other people. We're just not going to lie about it like our parents did.
Mhm.
And we're not going to trade our partner in for someone else because that didn't work for my parents. So it's a do-over. It's a redo of that monogamy lesson that you learned. And it's important to talk about because we don't really talk about it when we first meet. I promise to love, honor you, and never send a text to my ex on Instagram. I mean,
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's brilliant. That's actually it's funny because dating non-monogamously, we actually talk about all those things right up front.
Wow, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. That's fantastic.
Now, do you want to
Uh,
say more about that? Because I think that's so true. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
yeah, 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 it is true because, like, especially with online dating, it makes it really easy to, like, just ask all the questions up front. Like, what are you looking for, right? Are you looking for sex? Are you looking for a relationship? Are you looking for a friend to hang out with who maybe gives you head every once in a while? Like, what are you looking for? What are your agreements with your other partners? What are your safer sex agreements? How do you what are your values? what does friendship actually mean to you? What does sex mean to you? Right? Like you can talk about all of those things before you've even gone on a first date. Does any of this line up with me? Perfect. Great.
Yeah, totally. And if you're
Yeah.
if you're a gay male partner, you talk very quickly about like, are you a bottom or a top? Like, we don't
Mhm.
necessarily do that if you're in a heterosexual relationship or a lesbian relationship. So,
Yeah.
the idea of like communicating your needs. And I just want to reiterate, like, you don't just do that once because you change over
Over and over.
time. Every 7 years or so, like there's a whole new you, and you kind of want different things, and
Yeah.
it's really important. I mean,
Yeah.
we renew our driver's license every couple of years. You got to renew your monogamy agreement pretty often with all your
Yeah.
partners, to check in with everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always tell my clients, like, you get to change your mind. You have especially people who go from monogamy to non-monogamy. They start out going, here's what I think I want. Right? I want to open up so I can have gangbangs. And then they go and have a gangbang and they're like, "Oh, that's real overwhelming and is probably better as a fantasy." And their partner's going, "But I thought that's why we opened up." Like, no, you don't have to keep having them because that's what you thought you wanted. You have more experiences and more data to make your decisions on now.
Exactly. Exactly. I will say from, again, totally anecdotally, just from people in my practice or knowing people, I don't have any research on this, but I do see that in heterosexual couples, the the man will usually come up with the idea first of opening up. It takes women a little bit longer to like wrap their minds around it. But then when they do open up, men want to close it faster. They're like, okay, I'm done. And women are like, I'm closing this.
Nope. Nope. You open Pandora's box. It's open now.
You stay out of the box. So you can't.
That is exactly what I see.
Oh, it is? Oh, that's good.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Yeah, I would say, like, probably 80% of the couples I work with, that is what I see. Like, "Wait, I thought this was gonna be fun, and now my emotions are all activated, and I'm having all these feelings, and I'm having to, like, reexamine what it means to be a man, and what it means to be desired, and what it means to date somebody or interact with somebody other than the woman I've been interacting with for 20 years." There's a lot that comes up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot. And how come she gets to have all the fun and she's getting all the interest and I can't find anybody. Nobody wants to sleep with me. And there's a lot that happens.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Absolutely. And the ones that stick with it, like do the internal work, whether they stay open or not isn't the point, but the ones who do that internal work wind up so much happier.
Do you want to say
Yeah.
more about the internal work? I just love having this conversation with you. It's very interesting.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I think it comes figuring out what is their actual beliefs, their opinions, their thoughts, what they really want in their life versus what they've been told they're supposed to want, who they're attracted to versus who they've been told they're supposed to be attracted to. What sex looks like, and especially the part of making it not just about their penis. Everything else around sex, they just wind up going, "Oh, there's so much more that can be satisfying in my life, that can bring me joy, that I can provide joy. There's so many more ways that are available that I had no idea because most men are told like, you know, stick it to her, be a man, and go to work and then go to bed. Like whatever order that goes in, but everything else they aren't told they can do.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Stick it to her hard.
Heart. Yep.
With,
Yep.
with no lube and until you
Yep.
have
Yep.
orgasm, because that's successful sex. That's what they've been told. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And I'm like, take your dick out of the equation and then see what happens. You're going to have a whole new sex life.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
Uh-huh. 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 Is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners that I haven't asked you?
I mean, you mentioned jealousy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know that everyone has, all the therapists that are working with open relationships have the standard answer, which is jealousy is really about you and you need to work on yourself and figure out why you feel inadequate and what's coming up for you. I mean, I think that's true, but I also think jealousy can be the canary in the coal mine. Like, I think you
Mhm.
should listen to your jealousy. I think jealousy can be an intuitive hint that this is not working for me and I don't like this. And, you know, I personally believe everyone should have a veto, but I don't think it works all the time because if you say, okay, I'm vetoing this person, then it kind of sets up more longing, right, for the thing that you can't have. Maybe I didn't really want, but
Uh-huh.
now that I can't have them, I really want them. But
Mhm.
it it's important to see it as the need for more conversation and more clarity. Like, what am I
Yes.
actually jealous of? Is it the time? Going back to the time that you're spending with them? Is it the attention? Are you texting them all the time when we're at the dinner table? Um, you know, is it that we're not affectionate anymore? Like we don't touch when we're watching TV? You're on your chair, I'm on mine. Um, it's not always about the sex. You know, people automatically assume I'm jealous because you're having sex with another person. That's not necessarily the first thing people will answer.
Mm-mm.
So, you know, yes, of course, if you're seeing someone else and they're younger or better looking or smarter or they have something that I don't have, yeah, I might be envious. But the real issue I think is goes back to what I said in the beginning. Like who do you become when you're with that other person? And how come I didn't
Mm.
get to see that person? You know, they're
Yeah.
so charming and funny and, you know, you help them do the dishes. Like, where is that person at home?
Yeah. 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 I love that because that's kind of I always tell people to if you couldn't use the word jealousy, then what would you be
That
feeling? How would you describe what's going on?
Mhm,
Get rid of the word jealousy because it's too easy.
mhm.
Now what's going on?
It's very smart because it's a very complex emotion. That's
Yeah.
just like the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot underneath that. Yeah. Kind
Mhm.
of like
Mhm.
it's an umbrella term for a lot of other things. It's kind
Yeah.
of like communication issues or desire issues. Like there's a lot underneath all that stuff.
I said the same thing. If you can't use the word communication, then how would you describe the problem?
That's smart. That's very smart.
Yeah,
Ve
yeah.
I bet you're very good with couples.
Thank you. Sometimes I get there.
They're hard. It's very hard. It's hard work.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is, but it's fun. It's good stuff.
Mm.
How can people find you?
They can go to drtammynelson.com. It's DrTammynelson. And you can find all my books there or on Amazon. And actually, if people want to write to me through the website and say they heard me on your show, I'll give you a free ebook, like a download with like the first questions to ask, or a hu- have one that's like 100 questions for your monogamy agreement, something like that. I'll give you a free dialogue about how to have these conversations if you're beginning or in the midst or maybe thinking about closing. But I'm happy to do it, but they have to tell me that they heard us talking this fabulous conversation today.
Amazing. That's so generous. Thank you. I'll make sure it goes in the show notes for people. I have one more question for you, and this one is not for the main episode. It goes to our supporters at patreon.com/notmonogamous. And the segment's just the tip, and it's what is your best or favorite sex tip? Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show with me.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
I really hope that this conversation gave you something good to think about, maybe even permission to start asking some questions that you've been afraid to say out loud. Dr. Tammy Nelson brought so much depth and nuance to the table, and I'm grateful that we got to explore the gray areas of desire, commitment, modern love. And if you want even more from Dr. Tammy, head over to patreon.com/notmonogamous to check out our bonus segment, Just the Tip, where she's sharing her favorite sex tip. It's simple, it's powerful, and really it's something you might want to try tonight. So, as always, thank you for listening. If this episode resonated for you, please rate it, review it, share it with somebody else who needs to hear it. Other people want to know that their desires aren't too much and that they're not alone in wanting more. Bye.